Welcome to Constant Contemplations. I'm your host, Jonathan Constant. We are on Tuesday. Today's Tuesday. And you know what that means, ladies and gentlemen. TV Tuesdays. In today's episode of TV Tuesdays, I am going over The Last Dance. Yes, ESPN's The Last Dance. This show is basically the highlight of quarantine, or at least early quarantine TV watching. Sports were gone, pretty much everything was canceled, nobody could go out, so all everyone had was cable television and Netflix. So this was huge. Now, I didn't watch it when it first premiered because I was lazy. I just watched the highlights on Instagram, or I checked on Facebook and saw some of the snippets. And even from the snippets that I saw, that sounded like some compelling stuff. So we're going to talk about it. I'm going to let you know what I learned from watching this well done 10-part documentary. I mean, this thing flew by. I'm so happy I got it on Netflix so I could binge it, because waiting week to week, man, that would have been excruciating. That's kind of how I do things these days. I binge everything instead of watching it week to week. It's torture. I don't know how I used to do it when I was a kid, but so thankful for Netflix. Anyway, the series taught me quite a bit. I mean, when I was watching it, it was like something like a movie, like fiction almost. And it's why I'm a documentary / true crime junkie, is because reality, I believe, and it's also a quote, is that reality is stranger than fiction. And they are not wrong. I watched this thing and I said, wow, I can't believe this is happening. And a lot of the stuff I kind of already knew. I mean, come on, it already happened, and I do follow sports. A lot of it I already knew, but yet I was at the edge of my seat. I was biting my nails because this is compelling stuff. Now, I am a firm believer that dynasties, they don't fall apart for outside reasons. Sports dynasties collapse from within. It's always ego. I don't know how you could possibly get tired of winning. Like, winning should be the sole motivator, but it's not. It's, I want to win, but I also want to be the reason why we win. And The Last Dance definitely proved that to be true. That general manager, Jerry Krause, that short, fat guy, I don't know if you've seen the documentary or know who I'm talking about, but if you follow the Bulls dynasty, you know the name Jerry Krause. This guy just oozes insecurity. And he's a genius. I mean, he put that championship team together. And yet, this man just refused to get out of his own way. The guy would not stop putting himself in the narrative. Everybody and their mama knows that, yes, the general manager is important. He's the one who's putting the team together. But at the end of the day, it's the people on the court that matter. Okay? Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Horace Grant, all those guys. They're the ones who are putting the ball in the hoop. They're the ones that are beating their bodies into a pulp, okay? And this guy's just always trying to insert himself into the narrative. A good front office, you don't know what they look like. You don't know the sound of their voice because they don't care about that stuff, okay? They don't care about the credit. But this guy, Jerry Krause, I'm telling you, he cared about the credit. And he'd have some nerve to act all offended. How dare you ask that question? You know, or how dare you mention the things I want to do with the team and blah, blah. Come on, stop it. You know, I know, we know, you want the credit. Okay? But you can't put all the blame on him for the whole thing collapsing. Okay? There was just a number of different egos at play. And that's why I wanted to honor my favorite basketball coach, Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson is a master at managing different personalities. I saw this in the Lakers dynasty that he ran. And I mean, I'm telling you, this guy knew how to press the right buttons. And that's hard because when you're an athlete that's at the top of their game, sometimes it's tough to get motivated for things. But yet he always found a way to say the right thing to get these guys motivated. And he did it again in The Last Dance. For those who don't know, The Last Dance is a documentary, of course, talking about the final championship season of the Chicago Bulls. And it was called The Last Dance because Phil Jackson, before the season started, knew that management was going to go in a different direction after that season was over. So he pretty much knew, hey, this is it. So if we're going to motivate these guys to get another championship, I might as well give them that sense of finality and tell them it's the last dance. So he made that season thematic in a sense. So kudos to Phil Jackson, who turned that negative into a positive and really used that as a rallying cry for the team. He said, hey, listen, guys, this is it. So get ready. We're going to gear up and we're going to win one more and ride off into the sunset. So gotta love Phil Jackson. I mean, my love for him, of course, was in the Laker dynasty because I grew up in Los Angeles during the prime Laker years. And that's what made me into a basketball fan. And in turn, it made me into a Phil Jackson fan. So with the Bulls team, one of the things I noticed, and it's true of any successful team, is that athletes that are at the top of their game, the very best of their at their craft, they're usually jerks. But I remember growing up looking at Michael Jordan and seeing Space Jam and seeing all these McDonald's commercials and just one advertisement after another and saying to myself, oh my goodness, Michael Jordan is a saint. He is our patron saint. I'm telling you, I looked at Michael Jordan just like any other little kid and thought this guy could do no wrong. But The Last Dance showed us that is not true at all. Michael Jordan was a hard person to deal with. And I'm older now, of course, and I'm looking at The Last Dance and I'm like, of course, obviously, there are no saints in the realm of athletics, especially if you're really good. But it still surprised me. And that's what made the documentary so good. It still surprised me. Even though I knew Michael Jordan was a jerk, just seeing him curse at his teammates and, talking so much trash to his opponents and just the borderline insanity of his work ethic and the way he tried to bring his teammates up with him almost abrasively. That was jarring to watch, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it. What also surprised me was Scottie Pippen. Now, I looked at Scottie Pippen and thought, here's a guy who anyone who's great at something would want as their number two. This guy is humble. This guy is, he's not going to make any controversy for you. He's going to fall in line. Ultimate team guy. Not so much. No, Scottie Pippen was actually a bit of a jerk too. And that actually surprised me big time. That's something I didn't even know growing up and following sports, is that Scottie Pippen, he raised some hell when he was with the Bulls. He literally quit on his team during a playoff game. Insane. Who would have thought Scottie Pippen, humble, Robin to Michael Jordan's Batman, would do something like that? Now this was when he wasn't even Robin. He was the Batman of that team, because this was during Jordan's retirement years, his first retirement. So imagine the shock of his teammates quitting in the middle of a game. Well, not in the middle of the game, but towards the end of the game, and letting these people down, all because Phil Jackson drew up a play that he didn't like. Crazy. Blew my mind. Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman. Growing up, I remember looking at him and saying, that guy's insane. So it was not lost on me that he was insane. Dennis Rodman was always a crazy dude. And that's putting it nicely. And the documentary just showed just how crazy Dennis Rodman can get. I'm talking, leaving in the middle of a playoff series and going to the WWE or the WWF at the time to wrestle with Hulk Hogan. That is too funny. And then coming back and killing it in the next playoff game that he was playing. I think this was during the NBA Finals, too. Not just any playoff game. Like, they weren't just playing the 8th seed here. They were in the middle of the finals, and my guy flies out, participates in a WWF match, and then comes back and kills it the next game. Because, I could just do that. Those are the personalities that Phil Jackson had to work with. And it was amazing that time and time again, he would get them dialed in. That's no coincidence. Now, some people would look at Phil Jackson and say, oh, he's overrated. He had Michael Jordan. He had Kobe Bryant. He had Shaquille O'Neal. It's like, yes, that's a big part of it. Sure. These are phenomenal all-time talents. But you still got to get them motivated. You still got to get them to get along with their teammates and get up for those regular season games that don't mean anything. Of course, these athletes are going to get motivated for a playoff game or a finals game. But that game 20 against the New Jersey Nets, that's where good coaching comes into play. Where it's like, okay, how do I get this guy motivated for those games? So, insane, Phil Jackson's ability to manage personalities. Totally great. I have more for you on The Last Dance, but first, a word from our sponsors. Constant Contemplations has been brought to you by nobody. We need sponsors. Help! Someone, please, sponsor us. One of the best aspects of the documentary was the way they told the story. They would start out in 1998, right? And then fly back in time and tell a story from the past that was relevant to what was going on in 98. And one thing that I realized that I didn't realize before was the fact that Jordan faced a lot of scrutiny. This guy had so much pressure on him early on in his career because for the first few years of his career, he didn't win anything substantial. He won playoff games and he brought his team great success, but in terms of winning championships, he didn't win one for a while, okay? The guy struggled and he faced a lot of negative press about the fact that he hasn't won the big one. And that was something that LeBron went through. And I know everybody makes those parallels and stuff, but Jordan and LeBron faced similar pressure. The only difference is Jordan had the advantage of playing pre-social media. You see, Jordan didn't have to deal with Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. He didn't have to deal with the fact that his highlights, his mistakes, could be played at the press of a button. He didn't have to deal with all that. LeBron did. So to LeBron's credit, he faced way more pressure than even Jordan because his mistakes were magnified because of the technology that we have today. So that was amazing to see because a lot of people look back on Michael Jordan and it's almost like, oh, this guy never lost. Like every time he touched a basketball, he was winning. And that simply wasn't the case. It took great decisions by management to get everybody on the same page. And it took Jordan realizing that, hey, I'm going to have to not win a scoring title for once if it means I get my teammates involved in the game and get this championship thing going. He had to give up some individual accolades. So that just goes to show that we, with time, kind of romanticize about these players and blow them up way bigger than what they actually were. We forget the mistakes. We forget the scrutiny and the things that they went through. So that was amazing to see. I mean, this documentary was well done, man. I can't talk enough about the fact that it was masterfully told. And it takes true talent to tell a story that everybody knows the ending to and still mesmerize. So you got to give it to them. Just touching on that point about social media with Jordan and LeBron, and, you know, Jordan not having to deal with that. I remember the part in the documentary about Steve Kerr and Michael Jordan playing in practice. Those two were going at it, and Michael ends up swinging at him and punching him in the face. Punching a teammate in the face. Could you imagine in this day and age something like that happening? The scandal? It just goes to show how different basketball was in the 90s, the 80s and the 90s. How different sports in general were, but basketball in particular. Like, you used to be able to just literally knock people out on a daily, nightly basis on the basketball court. So in this day and age, the way everything is with the political correctness and anti-bullying, you just can't do stuff like that anymore. But Jordan, in that time period, him just swinging on a teammate and then playing the next game was perfectly normal. And I hate to be that get off my lawn guy, you know, or back in the day, you know, that guy, but I kind of miss it. Not necessarily missing people getting punched in the face, but just missing that tension, that animosity. Nowadays, everybody's friends. Everybody's friends with their teammates. Everybody's friends with their opponents. They're hugging and kissing after the game. Back then, even your teammates would get on your nerves sometimes, and you'd have to fight them. So that was a cool aspect also, just to see that, yeah, that dynasty was strong, and yet there was all of those tensions, all of those personalities, and Michael being at the center of it. You know, and it was just so volatile at the same time. It's like, how could something so stable be so volatile? But that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of seeing a dynasty like that. And it's one of the most unique things in sports that I have ever seen. So this documentary is a must watch, okay? I cannot rave about it enough. It was worth the hype. Definitely watch it first chance you get. It's on Netflix, ladies and gentlemen. Don't waste any more time. I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic. There isn't a ton to do if you're not working. So watch it. Watch The Last Dance and learn about the truth behind the legend that is Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening. This has been Constant Contemplations, another TV Tuesday in the books. I'll see you next week where we can discuss another great television show or documentary. Talk to you soon.